Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about one of the world's first great civilizations. A place often painted with broad strokes of advanced urban planning and enigmatic serenity. The Indus Valley. But I want you to push past those glossy textbook images for a moment. Forget the romanticized notions of an ancient utopia, because the truth, as always, is far grittier. We're going to dive deep into the everyday, often brutal realities of life in places like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, stripping away the glamour to reveal the genuine struggle and perseverance. Before we begin this journey back in time, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. Alright, find that cozy spot, dim the lights, and let's unravel the past, one harsh reality at a time. You've seen the pictures, haven't you? The perfectly laid out streets, the uniform brick houses, the Great Bethel, speaking to a level of sophistication that seems almost unbelievable for its age. But now, I want you to truly imagine yourself there. Not as a tourist marveling at ruins, but as a living, breathing inhabitant of Mohenjo-Daro, roughly 4,500 years ago. Forget the comfort of your climate-controlled home, the soft glow of your screen, the clean scent of your modern life. Instead, let the dust settle on your skin, the relentless sun bake down on your head, and the myriad unappetizing smells of a bustling, ancient city assault your senses. Your home, for instance, isn't the sturdy, insulated structure you're accustomed to. It's made of sun-baked mud bricks, or sometimes fired bricks, if you're slightly more prosperous. These aren't the precisely manufactured, uniform bricks of today. They're heavier, rougher, laid with a skill born of generations, yes, but still prone to the relentless wear of time and weather. Imagine the walls, thick and solid, but perpetually exuding a faint, earthy dampness, especially during the humid monsoon season. The floor beneath your bare feet is likely packed earth, smoothed by countless footsteps, but still cool and unforgiving. No plush carpets here, no polished wood or sterile tiles. Just the unyielding ground, often swept but never truly clean of the fine, pervasive dust that blankets everything. You wake with the sun, not to the gentle chime of an alarm, but to the first insistent rays filtering through a narrow, unglazed window, perhaps covered with a simple reed mat to keep out the worst of the flies and the harsh glare. The air is thick, even in the cool of the early morning, with the smells of the city stirring to life. You catch the faint scent of wood smoke from hearths just beginning to smoulder, the sharper tang of animal dung from the livestock kept in courtyards or nearby pens, and an underlying, omnipresent odor of human waste that, despite the sophisticated drainage systems, can never be entirely eradicated. It's a stark reminder that even the most advanced sanitation of its era was still, by your modern standards, a biological challenge. Stepping into the communal courtyard, perhaps shared with other families, you feel the rough texture of the ground underfoot. You hear the clatter of pottery as someone retrieves water from the well, the low bleating of a goat, the insistent chatter of early risers. There's no privacy here, not in the way you understand it. Life spills out from every doorway. Children, barely out of infancy, are already toddling about, their faces smudged with dirt, their bodies lean. You see their mothers, their faces etched with the fatigue of endless labor, their hands constantly moving, grinding grain, preparing a meager meal, tending to the youngest. The sounds are a cacophony of daily existence, a constant hum of human and animal life that never truly fades, even in the deepest hours of the night. When the cry of a distant jackal or the nervous rustle of rats becomes the dominant sound, think about your body. You are not soft and accustomed to ergonomic chairs and comfortable beds. Your muscles ache from the repetitive tasks of yesterday, perhaps hauling water, grinding grain with a heavy stone quern, or tending to a small garden plot on the city outskirts. Your back is likely stiff, your hands calloused and rough. You might have small cuts and scrapes, ignored and healing slowly, always at risk of infection. Your teeth, if you're an adult, are likely worn down from a diet heavy in coarse grains, perhaps even carrying the dull ache of an untreated cavity. There are no dentists here, no painkillers beyond what rudimentary herbs might offer. Pain, for you, is a constant companion, a dull background thrum to your everyday existence. The famous drainage system. Yes, it was revolutionary, but it wasn't a closed, odorless marvel. Open drains would have run down the middle of many streets, carrying wastewater and, inevitably, some refuse. The smell, especially on a hot day, would have been pungent. You would learn to avoid stepping too close, to navigate around the stagnant pools that sometimes collected, particularly after a heavy rain. And while some houses had their own well, fetching water was still a daily chore, often requiring several trips. You'd carry heavy earthen pots balanced on your head or shoulder, feeling the strain, the precious liquid sloshing precariously, knowing that this water, essential for life, could also be a source of unseen illness. Your diet, too, is far removed from the diverse, readily available food you enjoy today. You eat mostly barley and wheat, ground into flour and made into simple flatbreads or gruel. Perhaps a few lentils, some seasonal vegetables from a garden, if you're lucky. Meat is a luxury, consumed rarely, usually only from a sacrificed animal or on a special occasion. Your body craves variety, craves fats and sugars that are simply not available in your daily meager portions. You might experience the dull pangs of hunger often, especially towards the end of a growing season, before the next harvest. The feeling of being truly full, of having indulged, is an experience you rarely know. Food is sustenance, not pleasure. Look at your clothing. No fashionable choices, no wide array of colors or fabrics. You wear simple, homespun cotton, perhaps a loincloth, or a draped garment for men, a skirt and a shawl for women. The fabric is rough against your skin, prone to tears and stains from daily labor. It's functional, protecting you from the sun and providing a modest cover, but it offers little in the way of comfort or warmth during the colder nights. You own perhaps 2 or 3 such garments, washed by hand in the river or at the well, then dried in the sun, fading and fraying with each passing week. There are no closets full of options, no fast fashion. Your clothes are an extension of your labor, worn until they literally fall apart as you step out into the street. The sun is already climbing, beating down with a fierce intensity. You squint against the glare, feeling the heat radiate up from the packed earth. The narrow lanes are bustling. You dodge a cart pulled by an ox, its driver shouting a warning. You pass merchants haggling over pots of grain, weavers meticulously working at their looms set up in shaded doorways. Children chasing each other, their laughter a fleeting sound in the serious hum of the city. Everyone, it seems, is engaged in some form of labor, some task essential for survival. There's a constant movement, a tangible sense of purpose and collective effort that binds this city together, but also a relentless pressure. There are no weekends here, no holidays in the modern sense. Every day is a day of work, of striving, of simply existing. Consider the heat. It is a constant, oppressive force. You sweat freely, constantly, your clothes sticking to your skin. There is no air conditioning, no electric fans. You seek out the shade of buildings. You carry water whenever you can. But the heat saps your energy, dulls your senses, makes every movement an effort. You long for the monsoon rains to break the spell, to cool the earth, to bring life to the fields. Even as you dread the dampness and the mud they will leave in their wake. Your body is perpetually engaged in a battle against the elements, a constant negotiation with the natural world that surrounds you. This is your reality, your unglamorous, visceral life in the Indus Valley. It's a life of hard labor, simple, fair, and constant exposure to the elements. The advanced city planning, the neat grids, they were marvels of their time, yes. But for you, the individual, they provided a framework for survival, not a life of ease. They were functional, practical, built to endure, but they offered little respite from the demands of ancient existence. It's a world that forces you to constantly be aware of your physical body, its limitations, its needs, and its constant vulnerability. This is the truth beneath the polished veneer of history, a truth you now feel, almost, in your bones. You are part of a vast, anonymous collective, toiling day in and day out, not for glory or individual fame, but simply to see another sunrise, to feed your family, and to survive in a world that is breathtakingly beautiful and equally, brutally unforgiving. You've seen the pictures, haven't you? The perfectly laid out streets, the uniform brick houses, the great bath hall, speaking to a level of sophistication that seems almost unbelievable for its age. But now, I want you to truly imagine yourself there, not as a tourist marveling at ruins, but as a living, breathing inhabitant of Mohenjo-Daro, roughly 4,500 years ago. Forget the comfort of your climate-controlled home, the soft glow of your screen, the clean scent of your modern life. Instead, let the dust settle on your skin, the relentless sun bake down on your head, and the myriad unappetizing smells of a bustling, ancient city assault your senses. Your home, for instance, isn't the sturdy, insulated structure you're accustomed to. It's made of sun-baked mud bricks, or sometimes fired bricks if you're slightly more prosperous. These aren't the precisely manufactured, uniform bricks of today. They're heavier, rougher, lathed with a skill born of generations, yes, but still prone to the relentless wear of time and weather. Imagine the walls, thick and solid, but perpetually exuding a faint, earthy dampness, especially during the humid monsoon season. The floor beneath your bare feet is likely packed earth, smoothed by countless footsteps, but still cool and unforgiving. No plush carpets here, no polished wood or sterile tiles. Just the unyielding ground, often swept but never truly clean of the fine, pervasive dust that blankets everything. You wake with the sun, not to the gentle chime of an alarm, but to the first insistent rays filtering through a narrow, unglazed window, perhaps covered with a simple reed mat to keep out the worst of the flies and the harsh glare. The air is thick, even in the cool of the early morning, with the smells of the city stirring to life. You catch the faint scent of wood smoke from hearths just beginning to smoulder, the sharper tang of animal dung from the livestock kept in courtyards or nearby pens, and an underlying, omnipresent odor of human waste that, despite the sophisticated drainage systems, can never be entirely eradicated. It's a stark reminder that even the most advanced sanitation of its era was still, by your modern standards, a biological challenge, stepping into the communal courtyard. Perhaps shared with other families, you feel the rough texture of the ground underfoot. You hear the clatter of pottery as someone retrieves water from the well, the low bleating of a goat, the insistent chatter of early risers. There's no privacy here, not in the way you understand it. Life spills out from every doorway. Children, barely out of infancy, are already toddling about, their faces smudged with dirt, their bodies lean. You see their mothers, their faces etched with the fatigue of endless labor, their hands constantly moving, grinding grain, preparing a meager meal, tending to the youngest. The sounds are a cacophony of daily existence, a constant hum of human and animal life that never truly fades, even in the deepest hours of the night. When the cry of a distant jackal or the nervous rustle of rats becomes the dominant sound, think about your body. You are not soft and accustomed to ergonomic chairs and comfortable beds. Your muscles ache from the repetitive tasks of yesterday, perhaps hauling water, grinding grain with a heavy stone quern, or tending to a small garden plot on the city outskirts. Your back is likely stiff, your hands calloused and rough. You might have small cuts and scrapes, ignored and healing slowly, always at risk of infection. Your teeth, if you're an adult, are likely worn down from a diet heavy in coarse grains, perhaps even carrying the dull ache of an untreated cavity. There are no dentists here, no painkillers beyond what rudimentary herbs might offer. Pain, for you, is a constant companion, a dull background thrum to your everyday existence. The famous drainage system. Yes, it was revolutionary, but it wasn't a closed, odorless marvel. Open drains would have run down the middle of many streets, carrying wastewater and, inevitably, some refuse. The smell, especially on a hot day, would have been pungent. You would learn to avoid stepping too close, to navigate around the stagnant pools that sometimes collected, particularly after a heavy rain. And while some houses had their own well, fetching water was still a daily chore, often requiring several trips. You'd carry heavy earthen pots balanced on your head or shoulder, feeling the strain, the precious liquid sloshing precariously, knowing that this water, essential for life, could also be a source of unseen illness. Your diet, too, is far removed from the diverse, readily available food you enjoy today. You eat mostly barley and wheat, ground into flour and made into simple flatbreads or gruel. Perhaps a few lentils, some seasonal vegetables from a garden, if you're lucky. Meat is a luxury, consumed rarely, usually only from a sacrificed animal or on a special occasion. Your body craves variety, craves fats and sugars that are simply not available in your daily meager portions. You might experience the dull pangs of hunger often, especially towards the end of a growing season, before the next harvest. The feeling of being truly full, of having indulged, is an experience you rarely know. Food is sustenance, not pleasure. Look at your clothing. No fashionable choices, no wide array of colors or fabrics. You wear simple, homespun cotton, perhaps a loincloth, or a draped garment for men, a skirt and a shawl for women. The fabric is rough against your skin, prone to tears and stains from daily labor. It's functional, protecting you from the sun and providing a modest cover, but it offers little in the way of comfort or warmth during the colder nights. You own perhaps 2 or 3 such garments, washed by hand in the river or at the well, then dried in the sun, fading and fraying with each passing week. There are no closets full of options, no fast fashion. Your clothes are an extension of your labor, worn until they literally fall apart as you step out into the street. The sun is already climbing, beating down with a fierce intensity. You squint against the glare, feeling the heat radiate up from the packed earth. The narrow lanes are bustling. You dodge a cart pulled by an ox, its driver shouting a warning. You pass merchants haggling over pots of grain, weavers meticulously working at their looms set up in shaded doorways. Children chasing each other, their laughter a fleeting sound in the serious hum of the city. Everyone, it seems, is engaged in some form of labor, some task essential for survival. There's a constant movement, a tangible sense of purpose and collective effort that binds this city together, but also a relentless pressure. There are no weekends here, no holidays in the modern sense. Every day is a day of work, of striving, of simply existing. Consider the heat. It is a constant, oppressive force. You sweat freely, constantly, your clothes sticking to your skin. There is no air conditioning, no electric fans. You seek out the shade of buildings, you carry water whenever you can, but the heat saps your energy, dulls your senses, makes every movement an effort. You long for the monsoon rains to break the spell, to cool the earth, to bring life to the fields, even as you dread the dampness and the mud they will leave in their wake. Your body is perpetually engaged in a battle against the elements, a constant negotiation with the natural world that surrounds you. This is your reality, your unglamorous, visceral life in the Indus Valley. It's a life of hard labor, simple, fair, and constant exposure to the elements. The advanced city planning, the neat grids, they were marvels of their time, yes. But for you, the individual, they provided a framework for survival, not a life of ease. They were functional, practical, built to endure, but they offered little respite from the demands of ancient existence. It's a world that forces you to constantly be aware of your physical body, its limitations, its needs, and its constant vulnerability. This is the truth beneath the polished veneer of history, a truth you now feel almost in your bones. You are part of a vast anonymous collective, toiling day in and day out, not for glory or individual fame, but simply to see another sunrise, to feed your family, and to survive in a world that is breathtakingly beautiful and equally brutally unforgiving. You rise again with the sun, the same persistent warmth already pushing through the cracks in your mudbrick home. The air still carries the lingering sense of sleep, of bodies unwashed, of yesterday's cooking fires now cold. But there's no time for lingering, no leisurely stretch. The day calls, and your muscles, though still aching from the previous day's exertions, must answer. Today you are a worker in the vast engine that is the Indus Valley Civilization. Your specific role might vary, but the essence of your life is the same. Toil. Imagine yourself as a farmer, living just outside the city walls, or perhaps walking daily from a small dwelling within. You feel the cool, damp earth clinging to your feet as you step into the fields. The tools in your calloused hands are primitive, yet effective. A wooden plough, tipped with bronze, or sometimes just a sharpened stick, is pulled by an ox, a powerful, stubborn beast that you coax and guide with practiced shouts and gentle nudges. You hold the handles, your back bent, the vibrations traveling up your arms as the ploughshare tears through the soil. Each furrow you carve, each seed you sow, feels like a direct investment of your very being into the earth. It is a slow, arduous process, demanding immense physical strength and unwavering patience. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the heat intensifies. Sweat streams down your face, stinging your eyes, plastering your rough cotton garment to your skin. The air shimmers over the vast flat fields of barley and wheat, stretching out to the horizon. There's no sophisticated irrigation system, not in the way you might imagine. You are utterly, completely reliant on the monsoon rains. You watch the sky with an anxious hope, praying to unseen forces that the clouds will gather, that the heavens will open, that the life-giving water will descend. A late monsoon, a weak monsoon, or worse, a deluge that washes away your nascent crops. These are not abstract fears, but existential threats that keep you awake at night, gnawing at your peace. You know what famine looks like. You've seen its gaunt face in the lean years. The memory of hunger is a sharp, persistent spur to your labor. You spend your days not just plowing, but weeding, hoeing, chasing away birds and small animals that would otherwise devour your precious yield. Your hands are perpetually stained with earth, your nails broken, your skin sun-darkened and leathery. Every grain of barley, every kernel of wheat, represents hours of your life, droplets of your sweat, and a gamble against the capricious forces of nature. When harvest time comes, it's a frenzy of activity, a race against rot and weather. You cut the stalks by hand with a simple sickle, bundle them, and then thresh the grain, beating it to separate the precious kernels from the chaff. The dust from the threshing floor fills your lungs, making you cough, but you keep going, driven by the urgency of the task. This isn't just a job. It's your family's survival, written in the golden grains spilling from your hands. Perhaps you are not a farmer. Instead, you are a craftsman working within the city. You might be a potter, sitting at your hand-turned wheel, your fingers expertly shaping clay. The rhythmic whir of the wheel, the squish of wet clay, the focused intensity in your eyes. These are your world. You work from dawn until dusk, creating utilitarian vessels, cooking pots, water jars, storage containers, simple bowls. The repetitive motion gives you strong, nimble hands, but also a perpetual stiffness in your back and shoulders. The air around you is thick with clay dust, which you breathe in with every breath, a silent, insidious threat to your lungs. You learn the precise temperature of the kill by instinct, by the color of the flame, by the feel of the radiant heat on your face. A misfired pot is wasted labor, wasted clay, a small but significant loss in a world where every resource is precious. You cannot afford mistakes, or maybe you are a bead maker, renowned for the exquisite carnelian beads. You sit hunched over a small workspace, a primitive drill, perhaps a bow drill, in your hands. You select raw stones, chip them, grind them with harder abrasives, and then, with painstaking patience, drill a tiny hole through the center. The work is precise, demanding absolute focus. A slip of the hand, and weeks of careful grinding could be ruined. The dust from the stone fills the air around you, fine and insidious, settling on your eyelashes, coating your tongue. Your eyes strain in the dim light of your workshop, illuminated perhaps by a small oil lamp as dusk falls. Hours bleed into days, days into weeks, each bead a testament to your endurance and skill. You are creating objects of beauty, yes, but for you, it is simply more toil, more dust, more strained muscles and aching eyes. Even if you are a merchant, ostensibly of higher status, your life is far from easy. Imagine preparing for a journey. You oversee the packing of your goods, bundles of textiles, sacks of grain, perhaps some of those precious carnelian beads. Your journey might take you hundreds of miles, along ancient trade routes, across rivers and plains. You travel by foot, perhaps with a donkey or a bullock cart laden with your merchandise. The sun beats down on you during the day, the nights are cold and sometimes dangerous. You face the threats of bandits, wild animals, and the ever-present risk of illness. Every step is an effort, every stop a chance for vigilance. You haggle and bargain in distant markets, your reputation and your sharp wits, your most valuable assets. There are no instant transfers, no secure banks. Your wealth is literally carried on your back, constantly exposed to risk. The glamour of trade, if any, is overshadowed by the sheer physical and mental endurance it demands. Think about the sheer scale of the labor involved in building and maintaining your city. The very bricks of your home, the walls that encircle the city, the foundations of the public granaries, each one represents human effort, countless hours of mixing mud, shaping, drying, and then lifting and laying. You might have been part of a labor gang, toiling under the watchful eyes of foremen, moving massive loads, digging trenches, repairing walls after a monsoon. The sun beats down, the dust rises, your muscles scream, but you push on. Because the work needs to be done, because the survival of the collective depends on it. There's no union, no minimum wage, no safety regulations. Your body is the tool, and it is worked until it can work no more. Even the simple act of fetching water from a communal well is a significant physical chore. You queue up, waiting your turn, the heavy earthenware pot balanced on your hip or your head. You lower the rope and bucket, feeling the strain in your arms, then haul up the precious water, heavy and cool. You carry it back to your dwelling, careful not to spill a single drop, knowing that this simple act will be repeated several times a day, every day, adding to the endless litany of physical demands on your body. In this world, leisure, as you know it, simply doesn't exist. There are no vacations, no weekends, no time off. You work until you're too exhausted to continue, then you eat your meager meal, and fall into a sleep that is often disturbed by aches, the heat, or the sounds of the night. Your moments of respite are brief, a quiet conversation with a neighbor in the shade of a wall, the shared laughter of children playing a simple game, the communal chanting during a rare ritual. These moments are precious, fleeting, a tiny bomb on the constant ache of your existence. This is the daily grind of the Indus Valley. It's a relentless, unromantic struggle, a testament to the sheer human capacity for endurance. Your life is not about self-actualization or personal fulfillment in the modern sense. It is about contributing to the collective, about ensuring the survival of your family and your community. It is a life deeply intertwined with the earth, with the sun, with the rhythms of nature, and with the constant, demanding reality of physical labor. And as the sun finally dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, you drag your weary body back to your simple dwelling, knowing that with the next dawn, the toil will begin anew. You wake, your stomach already rumbling with a familiar, dull ache. It's not the sharp hunger of a missed meal, but a deeper, chronic emptiness that is a constant companion in your life in the Indus Valley. Forget your modern refrigerator, groaning with choices. Forget the brightly lit aisles of a supermarket. Your pantry, if you could call it that, is sparse, stocked with the absolute essentials, and governed by the unrelenting rhythms of the harvest. Your staple, the foundation of nearly every meal, is grain. Primarily barley, sometimes wheat, and in some regions, millet. You know the taste of each intimately, the slightly nutty flavor of barley, the milder sweetness of wheat. but what you mostly know is the sameness. Day after day, year after year, these grains form the bulk of your diet. Imagine the relentless monotony. No exotic flavors from distant lands, no culinary experiments, no complex recipes. Just the raw, fundamental sustenance required to keep your body working. Preparing these grains is an exercise in endurance. There are no electric grinders, no automatic mills. You spend hours each day, often with other women of your household or community, hunched over a heavy stone quern. You pour the dried kernels into the depression, then turn the upper stone with a wooden handle, grinding, 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 until the coarse flour tumbles out. The sound is a constant, rhythmic rasp, filling the air, a soundtrack to your existence. Your arms ache, your back stiffens, and the fine dust of the flour coats your clothes, your hair, and your lungs. This isn't a chore you do once a week. It's a daily necessity, a constant physical demand. Once ground, the flour is mixed with water to form a dough, often without yeast, sometimes a little salt, if available. It's then flattened into simple, unleavened flatbreads, cooked over an open fire or on a hot griddle. Or perhaps it's made into a thick gruel, a porridge, warm and filling, but bland. This is your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner. It's designed to provide calories, to fuel your labor, not to tantalize your taste buds. Lentils are another vital component of your diet, providing much-needed protein. You cultivate them in your fields, and once harvested, you sort them by hand, removing any stones or debris. They are then boiled until soft, perhaps seasoned with a wild herb or two, if you're lucky enough to forage them. Imagine the earthy, slightly bitter taste, a welcome change from the blandness of the grains, but still far from a gourmet experience. Vegetables are seasonal and limited. You might cultivate a small patch of greens near your home, or gather wild herbs and roots from the surrounding landscape. Onions, garlic, maybe some local gourds. These are precious additions, providing vitamins and fiber, but they are never abundant. Fruit, too, is a rare treat, dependent on what grows wild or what can be cultivated in small quantities. Perhaps some berries, wild figs, or dates if you live closer to areas where they thrive. The sweet burst of a ripe fruit is a sensation you cherish, a fleeting luxury dot now about meat. Forget the idea of a steak dinner. Meat is a rarity. You might eat goat or sheep, perhaps beef from cattle, but these animals are far too valuable for their milk, wool, or labor to be regularly slaughtered for their meat. When meat is consumed, it's often as part of a communal feast following a sacrifice or on a very special occasion. The meat would be tough, cooked over an open fire, eaten with a primal relish, bone and all. Hunting provides some wild game, deer, wild fowl, but it's a dangerous, time-consuming activity, not a reliable source of protein for the average family. Fish, if you live near a river or the coast, might be a more regular, albeit still humble, addition to your diet. Imagine the smell of it, drying in the sun. The bones picked clean. Dairy products, milk, yogurt. Perhaps a simple cheese would have been a more regular source of protein and fat, provided you owned livestock. But even then, these are simple, unpasteurized products, often consumed fresh, without the modern processing that makes them safe and long-lasting today. You'd know the taste of fresh, warm goat's milk, straight from the udder, and its slight temps as it begins to sour your access to spices. The very things that define so much of Indian cuisine today would be incredibly limited. No turmeric, no cumin, no coriander readily available in your daily cooking. Perhaps some wild garlic, some chili peppers, if they had made their way from the Americas, unlikely for this period, or local herbs. The flavors of your food are honest, earthy, and largely unadorned. The most critical element of your diet, and the source of constant anxiety, is water. You rely on wells, on the river, on collected rainwater, but these sources are rarely pure. You understand the need for clean water, instinctively boiling it if you can, or choosing a spring you deem safe. Yet, you also know the risks. Waterborne diseases are a constant threat. A bad belly, dysentery, cholera. These are not abstract medical terms, but common, often fatal realities. You remember the last time your child suffered from a raging fever and relentless vomiting. The fear in your heart as you watched their small body waste away. The water you drink, the water you cook with, is a gamble. A daily act of faith against unseen dangers. Consider the act of eating itself. It's not a moment of leisurely enjoyment. It's a necessity. You eat with your hands, sitting on the floor or on a low stool. There are no elaborate table settings, no individual plates, perhaps a communal platter or a simple earthenware bowl for each person. You eat quickly, efficiently, aware of the scarcity, making sure every morsel is consumed. There's a communal aspect, yes, but also an underlying competition, especially if food is truly scarce. You eat to live, to fuel your body for the endless work ahead. The threat of famine hangs heavy in the air, a shadow always just beyond the light of your cooking fire. A failed monsoon, a locust plague, a disease that sweeps through your grain stores. Any of these could mean widespread starvation. You remember the stories of past famines, the desperate measures, the slow, agonizing decline of communities. This ever-present threat instills a deep-seated caution, a conservatism in your food habits. You store what you can, you waste nothing, and you always look to the next harvest with a mixture of hope and dread. So, when you picture the sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley, remember the simple table. Remember the coarse grains, the scarcity of meat, the limited variety, and the constant threat of hunger and disease. It's a diet of absolute necessity, forged in the crucible of hard labor and natural variability. It's a world where every meal is a victory, every bite a continuation of your struggle for survival, far removed from the lavish feasts and diverse flavors of our modern world. Your plate might be simple, but it tells a profound story of resilience, of a people who sustained themselves, day after hard day, on the bare essentials of an ancient world. Now, you lie still on your rough sleeping mat, the oppressive heat of the Indus night making your skin feel clammy. But it's not just the heat that disturbs your rest tonight. Your small child, barely 3 years old, lies beside you, restless, whimpering softly. You reach out a hand, feeling the fiery heat radiating from their tiny forehead. A fever, again. And with it, a familiar, cold dread settles deep in your gut, an icy counterpoint to the sweltering night. This is the shadow of sickness, a constant, often fatal, companion in your Indus Valley life. Forget modern medicine, the sterile clinics, the miracle drugs, the vaccines that protect you from a host of childhood diseases. In your world, the understanding of disease is rudimentary, often attributed to angry spirits, evil omens, or imbalances in the body that you barely comprehend. When sickness strikes, your primary recourse is ancient wisdom, herbal remedies passed down through generations. and desperate prayers to unseen deities. Infant mortality is not just a statistic in a history book. It is a lived, agonizing reality. You've likely experienced it yourself, or seen it in every family around you. You expect to lose children. It is a harsh truth, a part of the fabric of your existence. You try to remain detached, to protect your heart. But each loss leaves a raw wound, a ghostly presence that never fully fades. When your baby develops dysentery, the relentless vomiting and diarrhea, you administer the traditional herbal concoctions. You keep them hydrated with water, but you watch, helpless, as their tiny body wastes away, knowing that often there is nothing you can truly do. You hold them close as their breath grows shallow, and then silence. The grief is profound, yet you must move on, for there are other children, other duties, other struggles. Diseases are rampant, a constant threat to every age group. Malaria, carried by the ubiquitous mosquitoes that thrive in the fertile, water-rich environment, brings waves of fever, chills, and debilitating weakness. You recognize its symptoms, the cyclic nature of its attacks, and you know it saps your strength, making work impossible for days, sometimes weeks. Dysentery, from contaminated water or food, can swiftly claim a life, particularly a child's. Tuberculosis, a persistent cough and slow decline, is another common killer, especially in crowded, close-quarter living conditions. Skin infections, from cuts and scrapes that turn festering in the humid heat, are a chronic nuisance, sometimes escalating into something far more dangerous. Parasitic worms, invisible but ever-present, drain your energy, making you weak and susceptible to other illnesses. Imagine the pain. Chronic pain is a part of your life. Your back aches from hauling water and grinding grain. Your joints stiffen from repetitive labor. Your teeth, worn down from coarse grains, often ache with decay, a constant, dull throb. There are no dentists, no pain relief beyond chewing on a few potent herbs that might dull the edge. When you break a bone, it's set as best as possible, often by an elder with some practical experience, but the healing is slow, painful, and often results in a crooked limb, a permanent disability. Serious injuries, a deep wound from a sharp tool, an infection that takes hold, often lead to a slow, agonizing death. Medical practices are rudimentary. You rely on the community's knowledge of medicinal plants. You might apply a poultice of crushed leaves to a wound, or drink an infusion for a fever. There might be a village healer, perhaps a shaman, who understands the properties of different herbs, or who can perform rituals to appease angry spirits believed to be causing illness. Their knowledge is valuable, but it is limited by the lack of scientific understanding. There's no concept of germs, no understanding of sanitation beyond the visible. You don't know that the water you drink, though clear, might be teeming with microscopic killers. Your lifespan is short, brutally short by modern standards. If you survive the perilous journey of childhood, you might reach your 20s or 30s before your body begins to truly wear out. Old age, the serene, golden years you associate with modern life, is a rare privilege granted only to a fortunate few who have navigated decades of disease, hard labor, and constant threats. Most people do not live to see their hair turn white or their skin deeply wrinkled. Life is a sprint, not a marathon, and the finish line often comes much sooner than you expect. Even childbirth, a joyous occasion, is fraught with immense danger. For women, each pregnancy is a gamble, each birth a life-threatening ordeal. Without modern medical intervention, complications like hemorrhage, infection, or prolonged labor often mean death for both mother and child. You've seen it happen, witnessed the desperate pleas, the agonizing screams, and then the chilling silence. The fear of childbirth is a constant companion for every woman, a heavy burden carried through every pregnancy. The constant presence of sickness shapes your perception of the world. It makes you fatalistic, accepting of your precarious existence. You live each day with a quiet awareness of your vulnerability, a profound understanding that life is fragile and can be snatched away at any moment. You cherish the health you have when you have it, and you view the robust health of your loved ones as a precious gift, a blessing from the unseen forces that govern your world. So, when you consider the sophisticated planning and apparent order of the Indus Valley cities, remember the human cost. Remember the rampant disease, the high mortality rates, the chronic pain, and the short, often brutal lives. The grandeur of the civilization did not translate into a comfortable, healthy existence for its people. Instead, it was a testament to their incredible resilience, their capacity to endure and thrive despite the relentless assault of sickness and the ever-present shadow of death. This is the true, unglamorous reality of your ancient life, etched in the very bones and fleeting breaths of your ancestors. Close your eyes for a moment and try to empty your mind of the familiar hum of modern life. The distant traffic, the whir of appliances, the gentle thrum of electricity that permeates every corner of your existence. Now, imagine a world where those sounds simply don't exist. You are standing in the heart of Mohenjo-Daro just after dawn, and the acoustic landscape that surrounds you is profoundly, fundamentally different from anything you've ever known. The first thing you notice is the pervasive presence of natural sounds. The wind, not a distant rustle in trees outside your window, but a tangible, moving force, whistling round the corners of mudbrick buildings, sighing through the narrow alleyways. You hear the distinct, rhythmic splash of the Indus River in the distance, a constant, low murmur that is the lifeblood of your civilization. Birdsong is everywhere, clearer, more insistent than you've ever heard it. The chirping of sparrows on the rooftops, the cooing of doves, the sudden squawk of a crow. These aren't background noises. They are integral parts of your daily experience, marking the passage of time, heralding changes in weather. As the city truly begins to stir, human sounds emerge, but they are layered differently. You hear the deep, resonant lowing of cattle and the bleating of goats from courtyards, their voices carrying clearly in the unpolluted air. The clatter of earthenware pots, scraped across packed earth or stacked in a dwelling, is a sharp, distinct sound. You hear the rhythmic scrape of a stone quern as women begin their daily task of grinding grain, a steady, almost hypnotic sound that drifts from every household. The air vibrates with this collective hum of domestic labor. Step out into the narrow street, and the sounds intensify. You hear the insistent shouts of vendors, their voices carrying far, advertising their wares, a fresh catch from the river, newly woven textiles, a handful of precious seeds. Children's laughter rings out, bright and unburdened, as they chase each other through the dusty lanes, their bare feet slapping against the ground. But their play is often brief, interspersed with the more serious sounds of adult instruction or warnings. The workshops add their own unique sounds to the tapestry. If you pass a potter, you hear the rhythmic whir of his foot-powered wheel, the soft squish of clay being molded, the occasional tap as he finishes a piece. Near a metalworker, the sharp, metallic clang of a hammer striking bronze reverberates, a powerful, percussive sound. If you are near a bead maker, you might hear the high-pitched scrape of a primitive drill against hard stone, a sound of immense patience and precision. Each craft has its distinct soundtrack, a specific acoustic signature that tells you what kind of labor is being performed in the fields just outside the city walls. The sounds are different again. The heavy, rhythmic creak of a wooden plow as it turns the soil, the grunt of the ox pulling it, the farmer's shouted commands, the rustle of dry stalks of barley in the wind, the buzz of insects, the distant bark of a dog. There's a profound, organic quality to these sounds, connecting you directly to the earth and the rhythm of agricultural life. One of the most striking differences from your modern life is the absence of mechanical noise. No engines, no vehicles, no machinery. The loudest man-made sounds are those of human labor, of simple tools, of animal power. This means that human voices and natural sounds carry much further and with greater clarity. A conversation held at a normal volume across a street could be easily overheard. The collective hum of the city is composed of individual, discernible elements, rather than the undifferentiated roar of a modern metropolis. At night, the transformation is even more profound. As the sun sets and the cooking fires dim, a deep, pervasive silence descends. The human sounds gradually fade. Children are put to sleep. Conversations cease. Workshops close. The only sounds are the rustle of leaves in the wind, the distant hoot of an owl, the nervous skittering of unseen creatures in the darkness. Without artificial light, without the constant stimulation of modern technology, your senses are heightened. You listen, truly listen, to the sounds of the night. A dog's bark from far away, the almost imperceptible movement of a mouse in the corner of your dwelling, the soft breathing of your sleeping family. This profound silence is not empty. It is full of meaning. It allows for reflection, for storytelling, for the quiet contemplation that is often lost in our noisy, modern world. When someone speaks in the darkness, their voice has a weight, a resonance that is almost sacred. The stories told around a flickering oil lamp, the shared whispers, become intensely intimate experiences, unbroken by outside distractions. Music, when it occurs, is simple and deeply resonant. Perhaps the rhythm of a drum, the mournful notes of a reed pipe, or the collective chanting during a communal ritual. These are not recordings or amplified performances. They are live, organic, acoustic experiences, shared in the moment, their raw vibrations felt in your chest. They connect you to your community, to your ancestors, to the spiritual world. The acoustic landscape of the Indus Valley is a world of clarity and immediacy. It forces you to be present, to listen, to interpret the subtle cues of your environment. You are more connected to nature, more aware of the rhythms of life around you. It's a world where the smallest sound can carry great significance, and where the profound silence of the night offers a unique space for human connection and internal reflection. A stark contrast to the relentless auditory bombardment of your technologically advanced existence. You might find yourself, after a day immersed in such an environment, rediscovering the subtle beauty of quiet, the power of an unamplified voice, and the ancient symphony of the natural world. You walk through the wide, organized streets of your city, Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa, and you can't help but notice the striking uniformity. The houses, while varying slightly in size, largely conform to a similar design. The bricks, mostly of standardized dimensions, are laid with remarkable consistency. The drainage systems, those marvels of ancient engineering, run beneath the streets with an impressive precision. There's an undeniable order here, a sense of deliberate planning that speaks volumes about organization. Yet, as you scan the skyline, something is conspicuously absent. There are no grand palaces, no towering temples, no monumental statues of kings or pharaohs. So, who holds power here? Who directs this complex society without the visible trappings of divine kingship or autocratic rule? This is one of the great mysteries, and the unglamorous truth is that power in the Indus Valley was likely far less centralized, far less ostentatious, and perhaps, for you, the common person, even more subtly pervasive than in other ancient civilizations. There isn't a single, identifiable king figure, no grand monarch living in opulent splendor. Instead, imagine a form of governance that feels almost like a collective, a council of unseen hands guiding the city. One theory suggests a priestly or merchant class. Picture the priests, not as flamboyant figures in elaborate robes, but perhaps as somber, respected elders, custodians of knowledge and ritual. They might live in slightly larger, more comfortable dwellings, perhaps near the impressive Great Bath in Mohenjo-Daro, a structure that hints at ritualistic significance. Their power wouldn't come from military might or hereditary titles, but from their perceived connection to the divine, their understanding of the stars, the seasons, the floods knowledge vital for an agricultural society. You would respect them, perhaps even fear them, for their spiritual authority, their ability to interpret signs and influence the community's well-being. Their pronouncements, delivered with gravitas, would carry immense weight, guiding decisions about harvest, trade, and communal life, alternatively or perhaps in conjunction. Imagine a powerful merchant class. These are the individuals who organize the long, arduous trade expeditions, who bring in exotic materials like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan or copper from Oman, who control the flow of goods that sustain the urban centers. Their wealth isn't displayed in massive personal residences, but in their networks, their ability to organize, their knowledge of distant lands and diverse peoples. They might hold significant influence in decision-making, as their economic prowess directly impacts the prosperity of the city. You would see them, perhaps, as shrewd and influential figures, respected for their success, their connections, and their ability to bring prosperity to the community. Even if you rarely interact with them directly, what is clear is that this was a highly organized society. The meticulous city planning, the standardized weights and measures found throughout the region, the uniform brick sizes, the complex public works, these all require strong central authority and remarkable coordination. This wasn't a free. Someone was making decisions, enforcing standards, and ensuring the smooth functioning of these bustling cities. But this authority wasn't expressed through grand displays of individual power. It was expressed through the very fabric of the city itself, in the consistent layout, the shared infrastructure, for you, the common person. This means that while you don't bow down to a visible king, you are constantly aware of the communal rules and expectations. There's a subtle but powerful social control at play. Your daily life is governed by implicit laws, traditions, and the collective pressure of your neighbors. Deviate too much, break the unspoken rules, and you would feel the weight of communal disapproval. Disputes might be settled by a council of elders, or by the influential figures of the community, their judgment carrying significant sway. Justice, in this context, is likely more informal, more communally enforced, rather than through a formal legal code or a centralized court system. Consider the granaries, Those massive structures designed to store surplus grain. Their existence implies centralized collection, distribution, and management of resources. This is economic power, plain and simple, and whoever controls the granaries effectively controls the sustenance of the city. These might be the priestly figures, the merchants, or a combination, but their control is absolute in times of scarcity, granting them immense influence over your daily life. You might resent their power in lean times, but you also understand their necessity for collective survival. The power structure, then, is a complex, almost invisible web. It's not about grand gestures. It's about practical management, religious authority, and economic control, all working in concert to maintain a remarkably stable and ordered society. You might never see the faces of your true rulers, never hear their names chanted in praise, but you feel their presence in the organized flow of your city, in the standards of your daily life, in the very bricks that form your dwelling. This unseen rule means there's less visible pomp and ceremony, but perhaps also less of the extreme inequality seen in societies with god-kings and vast slave populations. While there were undoubtedly differences in wealth and status, a craftsman producing fine beads would likely have more comfort than a common laborer. The archaeological record doesn't show the stark, glaring disparities often found elsewhere. There are no massive tombs filled with gold for a king, no vast estates for a ruling elite. Instead, there's a sense of pervasive, collective authority focused on the well-being and efficient functioning of the city as a whole. For you, this translates into a life where your contribution is vital, but your individual ambition, in the modern sense, might be secondary to the needs of the community. You are part of a highly structured system, and your role within it is clearly defined. There's a certain anonymity to your existence, a sense of being a cog in a large, well-oiled machine. It's a less glamorous, less dramatic form of governance than the empires of Egypt or Mesopotamia, but it was remarkably effective for its time, maintaining peace and prosperity for centuries, even if its rulers remain largely faceless and their power subtly wielded. As the sun begins its descent, casting long, dusty shadows across the narrow streets of your city, a different kind of burden settles upon your shoulders. It's not the physical ache of labor, but the weight of the unseen, the spiritual anxieties and hopes that permeate every aspect of your life in the Indus Valley. Forget abstract philosophical debates. Your spirituality is intensely practical, deeply intertwined with the cycle of life and death, fertility and scarcity. You look around and see few grand temples dedicated to a single, monolithic deity. Instead, your spiritual landscape is more diffuse, more intimate. You might find small, unadorned altars in courtyards, or simple figurines carefully placed in your dwelling. The most prominent evidence of your religious beliefs comes from the seals you use for trade and identification, and the numerous terracotta figurines unearthed by archaeologists. These objects hint at a pantheon, or at least a powerful set of spiritual principles that guides your understanding of the world. The Mother Goddess figurines, often stylized, with prominent breasts and hips, speak to a deep reverence for fertility. For you, in a world where crop yields are precarious and infant mortality is heartbreakingly high, fertility is not just an abstract concept. It is the very essence of survival. You might place one of these figurines in your home, offering small amounts of grain or water, quietly praying for healthy children, for abundant harvests, for the continued life of your livestock. This is a personal devotion, a constant plea to the forces that govern birth and growth. You feel a profound connection to this female principle, understanding that life itself springs from her generative power. Then there is the figure often dubbed Pashupati, or Lord of Animals, a male deity depicted in a yogic posture, surrounded by beasts. This figure resonates with your deep connection to the natural world. You are a farmer, a herder, a hunter. Animals are integral to your existence. You might offer prayers to this figure before a hunt, or when your livestock fall ill, seeking protection for your animals and for yourself from the dangers of the wild. He represents control over nature, a powerful guardian spirit, and a reminder of humanity's place within the larger ecosystem. You wear amulets, small charms carved from shell, bone, or steel, perhaps depicting animals or geometric patterns. These are not merely decorative. For you, they are tangible protection against unseen evils, against disease, against bad luck. You touch your amulet instinctively when you feel a pang of fear, or before embarking on a dangerous journey. It is a small, personal shield against the unpredictable forces of the world, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the mundane and the spiritual. Rituals are a regular part of your life, though perhaps less grand than those in other civilizations. There might be communal bathing in structures like the Great Bath in Mohenjo-Daro, a powerful act of purification, of shedding the accumulated dirt and spiritual impurities before approaching the divine. You feel the cool water on your skin, cleansing not just your body, but your soul, preparing you for moments of communal reverence. These are not daily occurrences, but significant events that bind the community together, reinforcing shared beliefs and collective purpose. Life cycle rituals, birth, coming vogue, if such existed beyond simple maturation, marriage and death are profoundly important. You celebrate a new birth with quiet joy, but also with a potent undercurrent of anxiety, knowing the fragility of young life. Marriage might be a communal affair, binding families and lineages, with simple blessings and shared meals. But it is death that casts the longest, most profound spiritual shadow. When a loved one dies, your grief is raw and immediate. You prepare the body for burial with simple care. There are no elaborate mummification processes, no pyramids, no vast treasure-filled tombs for the common person. Your dead are often buried in simple pits, sometimes with a few personal possessions, a favorite pot, a few beads, a small amount of food for the journey to the afterlife. You participate in the burial rites, the quiet procession, the solemn placement of the body into the earth. The earth, which gives life, now receives back what it has nurtured. The understanding of the afterlife, for you, is probably vague. You might believe in a journey to another realm, a continuation of existence, but the focus is less on a blissful paradise and more on a peaceful transition, a return to the cosmic cycle. The rituals are about honoring the dead, ensuring their passage, and comforting the living. You understand that death is not an ending, but a transformation, a return to the elements that formed you. Superstition, in your world, is not a separate category from religion. It is interwoven with it. You interpret omens in the flight of birds, in the patterns of clouds, in the dreams that visit you at night. You avoid certain actions on particular days, or observe specific taboos, believing that your actions can directly influence your fate and the favor of the gods. This constant awareness of unseen forces, this need to placate or interpret, adds another layer to the mental load of daily life. The spiritual burden of the Indus Valley is one of constant engagement with the unseen. a practical faith rooted in the immediate needs of survival and fertility. It's less about grand theological constructs and more about daily rituals, personal devotions, and a deep respect for the forces of nature. You carry your beliefs in your heart, in your amulet, in the careful tending of your crops and your children, a constant negotiation with a spiritual world that is both vital and, at times, terrifyingly mysterious. It's a weight, yes, but also a source of hope and connection in a world filled with hardship and uncertainty. You wake, not to a closet full of choices, but to the familiar sight of your limited wardrobe. Forget fashion trends. Forget the dazzling array of fabrics and styles available to you today. In the Indus Valley, your clothing is a testament to practicality, to endurance, and to the relentless demands of your daily existence. It is simple garb, designed for hard wear, and it tells a story of an unglamorous, physically demanding life. Your primary material is cotton. You might have seen it growing in the fields, a fluffy white boll bursting from a green plant. You've certainly seen it processed. Imagine the arduous task of spinning that cotton by hand, drawing out the fibers into a thread with a simple spindle. It's a time-consuming, repetitive task, often done by women, their fingers moving with practiced dexterity, creating the raw material for all clothing. Then comes the weaving on a simple loom, slowly, painstakingly transforming the thread into fabric. This isn't fine, delicate silk. It's coarse, sturdy cotton, designed for durability rather than luxury. For a man like you, your primary garment might be a simple loincloth, perhaps supplemented by a draped shawl or a rectangular piece of fabric wrapped around your lower body, secured with a belt. For a woman, a skirt and a shawl, or a longer length of fabric draped over one shoulder and across the body. The designs are functional, unsewn for the most part, allowing for ease of movement and ventilation in the hot climate. Imagine the feel of this rough fabric against your skin, chafing slightly as you move, absorbing the sweat of your labor. You own perhaps 2 or 3 sets of these garments, no more. They are your uniform for life. You wear them day in and day out, through the dust of the fields, the grime of the workshops, the sweat of the city streets. They become stained with earth, with food, with the various effluvia of daily life. There are no washing machines here, no detergents. When your clothes become too soiled, you take them to the river or a communal well, scrubbing them vigorously with sand, or perhaps a basic soap-like substance derived from plant ash. You then lay them out on rocks or hang them over branches to dry in the blazing sun, watching them fade a little more with each wash. Tears and holes are a constant battle. A snag on a thorny bush, a tear from a sharp tool, the inevitable wear and tear of constant friction against rough surfaces. You mend them carefully, patiently, with a needle made of bone or bronze, and thread spun from the same cotton. Waste is not an option. Each garment is repaired until it can literally be repaired no more, until the fabric is too thin, too threadbare to serve its purpose. Then, perhaps, it is cut into rags for cleaning, giving it one last, final purpose before it truly disintegrates back into the earth beyond cotton. You might occasionally see wool, especially in cooler periods or higher elevations, but it's less common for daily wear in the hot plains. Animal skins, while providing warmth, might be used for specialized purposes or by those living on the fringes of settled areas. Adornment is simple, almost universally so. For the common person, a few beads strung on a fiber, perhaps made of local terracotta, shell, or bone. Maybe a simple copper or bronze bangle on your wrist or ankle. These are not grand displays of wealth, but humble personal touches, often with a protective or symbolic meaning. The famous carnelian beads, while exquisite, are likely reserved for the more affluent, or used as trade goods rather than everyday adornment for the average individual. Hair is kept practical, tied back, braided, or simply cut short to keep it out of the way during labor. There are no elaborate hairstyles requiring hours of work. Grooming is functional. A simple comb made of bone or wood. Perhaps a small bronze mirror for the more well-to-do, reflecting a blurry, imperfect image. The smell of your clothes and your body is far from pleasant by modern standards. Without modern soap, deodorants, or frequent changes, you carry the odors of sweat, smoke, dust, and daily activity. You are accustomed to it, as everyone else around you is the same. The air is thick with these human and animal scents, a constant, pungent reminder of the physical realities of your existence. This is the reality of your personal presentation in the Indus Valley. Your clothes are a second skin, an extension of your labor, bearing the marks of your toil and your life. They offer protection from the sun, modesty, and the bare necessities of warmth. There is no individual expression through fashion, no statement of personal style in the way you understand it. Instead, your garments are a testament to collective effort, to the scarcity of resources, and to the unwavering focus on survival. They are a daily, tactile reminder of your place in an ancient world, far removed from the comfort and choice of your modern wardrobe. You've lived your life within the sturdy, familiar walls of your city, enduring its hardships, finding solace in its community, your existence inextricably linked to its rhythms. But now, as the generations pass, a subtle, insidious change begins to creep into your world. It's not a sudden, cataclysmic event, not a conquering army at your gates, but a slow, almost imperceptible fading, a gradual unraveling of the very fabric of your civilization. This is the unglamorous, perplexing end of the Indus Valley. Forget dramatic battles or the fiery destruction of empires. Your civilization doesn't collapse with a bang, but with a series of prolonged, frustrating Imagine the changes. The first whispers are of environmental shifts. The great rivers, the lifeblood of your land, begin to change their course. The mighty Saraswati, or Gagahakra, once a powerful torrent, starts to dwindle, its waters receding, its banks becoming increasingly dry and cracked. The Indus itself, while still flowing, experiences shifts in its behavior, its floods becoming either less predictable or more devastating. You, as a farmer, feel this first and most acutely. The ground beneath your feet, once rich and fertile, begins to dry out. The monsoon rains, once reliable, become erratic, either failing altogether or arriving with such force that they scour the topsoil, causing floods that destroy your crops and homes. The constant struggle against nature, always present, now intensifies to a desperate fight for survival. You see the signs in the shrinking yields, in the increasing dust storms that plague your city, in the thirsty faces of your children. The very foundation of your agricultural economy, the abundance that allowed your cities to thrive, is slowly eroding. Perhaps you notice a subtle degradation of the environment around your city. Centuries of harvesting wood for fuel, for construction, for firing bricks, have taken their toll. The surrounding forests, once lush, are now depleted, pushing you to travel further and further to gather essential resources. This deforestation contributes to soil erosion, to changes in local climate, creating a vicious cycle of environmental decline. The air quality worsens with the increased dust and the smoke from open fires, making your already fragile lungs even more susceptible to illness. Within the cities themselves, the proud uniformity that once defined them begins to fray. The meticulously planned streets show signs of neglect. Repairs are less frequent, less diligent. People start building small, makeshift structures over the drainage systems, obstructing the very sanitation that was once your city's hallmark. The beautiful, standardized bricks are now sometimes reused, repurposed in a haphazard manner, breaking the once perfect grid. You see evidence of overcrowding in certain areas as people huddle together, perhaps due to dwindling resources or a sense of insecurity. The elegant order gives way to a more chaotic, less managed existence. The centralized authority that once governed your society, that unseen hand, seems to weaken. The standardization of weights and measures, once so prevalent, starts to disappear. Trade networks, once robust, become fractured and less reliable. The distant lands that once supplied precious resources are now harder to reach, or perhaps their own societies are facing similar pressures. The sense of collective purpose, of unified effort, begins to dissolve into smaller, more localized struggles for survival as life becomes harder. The cities, once vibrant centers of activity, slowly begin to lose their appeal. People start to leave, not in a mass exodus, but in a gradual trickle. They seek new lands, new opportunities, following the dwindling rivers, moving towards areas where the soil might still be fertile, where the rains are more reliable. You see your neighbors pack their meager belongings, their faces grim with the decision, their future uncertain. You might consider it yourself, the agonizing choice between staying in a decaying city or venturing into the unknown. There are no grand battles, no final sieges to mark the end. There might be some internal strife, perhaps, as resources become scarcer, leading to localized conflicts, but no evidence of a widespread, destructive invasion. Instead, it's a slow, quiet abandonment. The once bustling streets fall silent. The workshops cease their rhythm. The homes stand empty, gradually succumbing to the elements, their mud-brick walls eroding, their roofs collapsing. The dust that always permeated your life now slowly reclaims everything. Burying the achievements of your ancestors, the great cities become ghost towns, forgotten by all but the winds that whisper through their ruins. The people disperse, carrying their traditions, their language, their knowledge to new regions, slowly integrating with other cultures, their distinct identity dissolving over centuries. The sophisticated writing system, once a mark of your civilization, falls into disuse, its meaning lost, a silent testament to a forgotten time. So, as you reflect on the end of the Indus Valley, remember that it wasn't a dramatic collapse, but a unglamorous struggle against environmental change and a gradual loss of cohesion. It's a poignant reminder of the fragility of even the most advanced societies when faced with relentless natural pressures and internal decay. Your ancestors didn't face a glorious last stand. They faced the slow, agonizing process of their world eroding beneath their feet, forcing them to adapt, to move, and eventually to disappear into the vast tapestry of history. And as you return to your comfortable, modern world, consider the profound resilience of those who, faced with such a profound loss, simply picked up what they could, and continued the ancient human journey of survival.